German Chancellor Friedrich Merz believes that Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky should be invited to the meeting of US and Russian leaders Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin in Alaska on August 15. Merz announced that he would speak by phone with Trump about his planned meeting with Putin in Alaska. "We are intensively preparing for this meeting at the European level together with the American government. And we hope and assume that the government of Ukraine, President Zelensky, will be involved in this meeting. In any case, we cannot agree that territorial issues between Russia and America are discussed or even decided over the heads of Europeans and Ukrainians," he added. "I assume the American government sees it the same way, which is why there is such close coordination," Merz said. "We hope for a breakthrough on August 15. First of all, for there to finally be a ceasefire. And for the possibility of peace talks in Ukraine," Merz said in an interview with the TV channel ARD. He recalled that the conflict in Ukraine has been going on for 3.5 years. "It's time to put an end to it," the German Chancellor emphasized. He expressed hope that a decision on a ceasefire could be reached at the meeting. "And this is long overdue. This is a diplomatic initiative. We are constantly called upon not only to supply weapons, but also to put forward diplomatic initiatives," Merz said. "Europeans do not want and should not be spectators when it comes to the most important strategic issue for the future of Europe. And that is why we hope for this. We are working on this," he continued. "In any case, we cannot allow territorial issues to be discussed or even resolved between Russia and America bypassing the Europeans and Ukrainians. I believe that the American government shares this point of view," the German Chancellor summed up, adding that, "This is precisely why there is such close coordination. This will continue in the coming days. We will continue this in Berlin as well," he concluded.
During an operation in the Sumy region, Ukrainian intelligence forces wiped out over 8 Russian companies, showcasing impressive coordination and effectiveness. Valery Ryabik, military expert and Defense Express Development Director, stated this on Espresso TV. It should be noted that the General Staff and the Ukrainian Armed Forces Commander-in-Chief have similar tools, including for use in such critical moments. But still, we can talk about planned actions because, in principle, in this case, we are not talking about specially trained special forces units being sent to the front just to sit in trenches. They were engaged in exactly the kind of work for which they were created, assigned, and, as they say, sharpened. These are raids deep into enemy territory, disrupting the enemy's rear operations and cutting off the supply lines of units on the front line, and accordingly actions to detect and destroy the enemy in certain areas, he said. Valery Ryabik noted that the number of fighters is not as important as their skills, motivation and coordination. What has been reported now, what we can focus on, is that almost 2 enemy battalions were put out of action. We're talking about 8 companies, which is at least 2.5 battalions. This shows that the number of fighters is not important. What matters are skills, motivation, and most importantly, coordination. Because if you look at even the short video that was published, the level of coordination is impressive. Actions on the ground, actions in the air by reconnaissance, actions by supporting units such as artillery and drone units, which deliver coordinated strikes, and accordingly, the level of command is impressive. This is exactly the level of coordination and effectiveness that units should strive for. For this, first and foremost, you need the best quality people, the best equipment for them, and accordingly, the right organization of command, coordination, and comprehensive support. Then the result will be the same, regardless of how many enemy forces oppose such units, the military expert believes. Recall on August the 5th, Ukrainian intelligence operatives from the Timor Special Unit of the Main Intelligence Directorate successfully stopped an attempt by Russian troops to advance in the Sumy direction. During the operation, Ukrainian soldiers successfully penetrated enemy lines, destroyed several enemy positions, and secured their own foothold. Russian troops' advance has been stopped, and the supply of provisions and ammunition to their troop group has been disrupted. According to preliminary data from the Finance Ministry cited by the Moscow Times, the deficit increased by 1.2 trillion rubles or $15 billion in July alone, and expenditures jumped to 3.9 trillion rubles or $49 billion. The data shows Russia's war machine consuming the state itself. Unlike previous conflicts, Moscow can't fund this war indefinitely, and Western allies now have concrete proof that sustained pressure works. The new figures reveal a grim picture of stagnation, overspending, and war at all costs priorities. According to Reuters, government spending rose more than 20% in the first 7 months of 2025, while revenues grew just 2.8%. That gap is mainly driven by ballooning military costs. What makes the alarm even more telling is that the warning comes directly from Russia's central bank. It now forecasts zero growth by December, down from 4.5% last year. Euromaidan Press says, so far this year, Russia has spent 25.2 trillion rubles or $320 billion. A staggering increase from pre-war spending levels when the annual federal budget totaled around $220 billion in 2021. As Bloomberg reports, signs of crisis are now visible across different sectors as coal mining companies suffer losses, oil, gas, and metallurgy companies see a decline in profits. The automotive industry significantly cuts production due to weak demand. Productivity in civilian sectors is falling fast. The Moscow Times reported in July that Russian car makers have all shifted to a 4-day work week to preserve existing jobs due to diminishing demand, high interest rates, and a lack of affordable financing tools for buyers. Russia's aviation industry, once a symbol of national pride, has delivered just one of 15 promised passenger aircraft this year. Sanctions, oil price caps, and labor shortages are eroding Russia's economic foundation. Yet Moscow shows no intention of scaling back its invasion. A recession with consequences far beyond Russia's borders now looms. The signs are clear. Western sanctions, shifting energy markets, and export controls are having an impact. But they're not enough on their own. The Kremlin is willing to sacrifice every civilian sector to keep the war machine running. That's why Ukraine's battlefield resilience and sustained Western support remain essential. Economic pressure may hurt Russia, but it won't stop the war on its own. For Western policymakers, these numbers prove that economic pressure is working, but they also show why military aid remains crucial to finish what sanctions started. Russia's budget crisis gives Ukraine a strategic window, but only if allies simultaneously maintain economic and military pressure. The anger of Russian citizens who remain free against the Russian authorities is growing.